What's up, guys? We are back with another wave of Super 7 Ultimates, and we are doing another wave of Turtles. It's time for Wave 4. It has been a few months since we got Wave 3, but it's actually been just a year since we got Wave 2. I got a little notification somewhere that 1 year ago I reviewed Leonardo from Wave 2, and now we're taking a look at Wave 4 with... You know, I'm not going to harp on this too much, but he's someone's favorite turtle out there. He's not my favorite turtle, but we are finally finishing the core team 4 waves in, and we have got our 4th turtle with Donatello. He may not be my favorite, but I am no less excited about getting this guy, finishing the core team, and getting to like a very hallmark perspective point in this line where it's really gearing up and it's really happening. We finally got all our turtles. So of course we've got him here in standard ultimate style packaging, so he's a good guy. All of these are good guys in wave 4 actually, and we've got the green ooze motif for the slipcover. So you've got his manhole cover with his face there emblazoned on it, and then of course pop this guy off and we've got our actual packaging with the figure inside. So we've got the green brick motif that's sort of exploding to showcase the figure in that big window with all of his accessories, and there are a ton in there. And then you've got windows on both sides with more of that brick, as well as a huge graffitied brick wall on the back alongside his bio. So great presentation as usual. I dig the Ultimates packaging, but we got to do it. So let's rip this guy out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our final turtle in the normal assortment of Ultimate Turtles from Super 7. You know, of course, there's plenty of variants to do, but we finally have the core turtle team done. We've got Shredder, we've got April, we've got Splinter, we've got Bebop and Rocksteady, we've got all 4 turtles now. So we are very much in the thick of it. We are very much on the way to having a supremely robust collection of figures, and this guy really gets things going. You know, I've said it a million times, Leonardo is my favorite turtle. It's not going to change. I know Donatello has a huge following, and I am no less excited about this guy because he's not my favorite. I'm really excited to get this one because, well, he's just as important as any other turtle, and he's also very unique too, because of the fact that he has this just weird brown olive sort of skin tone. He stands out amongst the 4. So let's get started, see what he can do, see how he moves around. Now, of course, if you've got any of these, you know what to expect right out of the gate. There's nothing really special or different about Donnie in comparison to any of the other turtles. So as far as his head, he can look up really good, but they do suffer when it comes to looking down. They don't really look down too much, pretty much just sort of neutral. You do get some pretty good tilt though, and then you've of course got full rotation there. Arms out at the shoulders, full rotation also. You've got your bicep swivel. We've got our single jointed rotating elbows there. You've got vertical hinges with rotation on him in the box. Now there's other hands. We'll talk about what those do later. Now, of course, being a turtle figure, well, for years and years has always been really locked down at the torso, but Super 7 has, figured out a way to make them move a little bit better. So there is a shimmy, kind of a waist twist here under the shell, and then of course they do have tilt side to side, so you can sort of kick those sort of hips, if you want to call them that, what should be hips, out a little bit, and then a little bit forward and backward. So he can sort of, do one of these numbers if you want to move him forward and backward. Legs go out all the way, so you're going to get full splits on them. They do kick forward all the way. The shell is sort of a rubbery piece, so it will move and get out of the way. They do kick backwards slightly. There is a twist up here because it's a ball and socket, so there's a twist at that ball. You do have your single jointed rotating knee there, and then down at those ankles, really good rocker. I mean, that's a broken foot right there, and then you've got really good hinges as well. So, outside of the fact that these guys have single jointed elbows and knees, they move really well. I've had no issues with them. Nothing was stuck out of the box. Nothing has seemed loose. I know that has been a thing on folks' minds when it comes to some of the turtles, is that their hips are a little loose. He's not going anywhere. He's not moving. Everything seems to be pretty snug for the most part, and he is really easily posed. No real issues to speak of. Very smooth and no muss, no fuss kind of posing situation going on here. Now, aesthetically, this guy is, well, he's very similar to all the other turtles, which is again to be expected, but he does have his very unique characteristics. So, skin tone, of course, the color of his bandana and his pads and his wrist guards, and then, of course, the belt and harness. But for the most part, it's still the same figure. That is to say, the sculpt is nice. I'm really happy with the level of detail on this guy. His shell looks really well done. Nicks and cuts and gouges and everything in there. But it really comes down to, for Donatello, it comes down to his facial expression, the purple, and then, of course, this weird skin tone that they had to give him in the vintage line to give him that sort of browny, olive green kind of color. And I think it works really well. It looks very vintage. I mean, this is instantly recognizable, even if you don't really first pick up on the purple. You see this skin tone, and you instantly think Donatello. When it comes to that vintage line. One thing I will point out that I know some folks had concerns about with Michelangelo and then of course Leonardo is that Mikey's fingernails were not painted, his nails weren't painted, so that has been remedied. Donatello's are, and then Leo had that weird bit of silver paint on the belt, so this is more in line with Mikey. And a little bit more in line with Raph. Raph still had a little bit of paint, but it wasn't as overt as Leonardo. So he's kind of more back to center, I suppose, on where things should be. But I think, for the most part, this guy looks tremendous. There's not really a lot to go over here. If you've gotten one of these in hand, you really know what to expect. Paint is solid where it's applied. There's not tons on this guy. For the most part, it's, cast plastic. There's a little shading on him, but overall it's cast plastic, shading like on the soft undershell here, paint for the D, and then of course you've got the head sculpt, which is very vintage inspired, of course. So they all have that sort of specific look for their head. So you've got somebody that's gritting both sides of their teeth, or somebody that's gritting on one side, or vice versa. And then of course Donatello is the one that gets both sides of his teeth exposed, and then the middle of his mouth is closed. So I do think they did a really good job here. Bandana looks nice. The colors are bright and vibrant. That purple really does pop, especially against the white of the eyes, and the teeth are painted really cleanly. No real issues to speak of there. And then he does, of course, have his bandana kind of flourishing on the back. So, there's not tons and tons to talk about here. They got the skin tone right, I think. He's got really good sculpt. The harness looks good. He does have storage for his bow staff. And then he's got some of those things that I think some folks had issues with. Leonardo's emblem is fixed on Donatello in terms of that paint not being there. And then he does, of course, have paint on his nails, which I know folks were kind of concerned about when it came to Michelangelo. So I'm really happy with him. He seems to be ticking all the boxes, really. And I think he's going to look pretty tremendous and going to stand out really well at the same time with the other three turtles. And then as far as comparisons go, I figure we have to start with the other turtles. So we've got Raph, Leo, and Mikey, so wave 1, 2, and 3. And then we've got Donnie over here for wave 4. And there's really not a lot to compare to. I mean, they are all very, very similar, but they have their own unique thing. So they've all got their own unique expression. They've got their own unique color scheme. The eyes are different shapes on each figure. The bandanas go in certain ways. They've got their own unique harnesses, skin tones, etc., etc. All the little stuff that make them really unique. But when you get them all together, it does look extra cool. And frankly, this is a really satisfying thing to see, to finally have all four together, because again, it's been what, a year and 4 months since I first got this guy, roughly. Maybe a little bit less, but about 16 months since I first got Raph. So it's been a very, very long journey, but this is incredibly satisfying, and I think we've got a really, really, really nice team when it comes to having just the four brothers. So there's an idea of what they all look like next to each other. And then we're going to take a look real quick at just some other Donnies. I'm not going to do like a million of them because, well, frankly, a lot of them are still packed up, so that presents its own problem. But we've got a couple that make the most sense as far as timeliness. So here is the current, other Donnie right now, the NECA Toys disguised Donnie. So this is, of course, the one that comes with the trench coat. And then we've got a vintage Donnie here, which does not have the correct belt on him, but There you go. So you get an idea of what he looks like and where this skin tone comes from. So, if you aren't or you weren't a vintage Turtles collector, or, didn't buy them as a child, you get an idea of where this sort of weird chocolatey green olive skin tone comes from. And then, of course, you've got that telltale head sculpt with the exposed teeth on both sides. It also gives you an idea here of just how these two scale with each other, because they're very different. They, of course, represent two very different aspects of Turtles from the same era, but it gives you an idea of just how they scale. So, of course, the Super 7 is a little bit on the larger side, and then NECA's skew a little bit smaller because their Turtles are more in the 5-ish inch range, 5.5 inch range versus like a full 6 inch like the Super 7 is. And then, of course, we have to do some size comparisons to other lines as well because, well, why not? So let's start with, I don't know, maybe a NECA. So here is a NECA Toon Shredder. Yes, that is a custom cape. Disregard that. And then we've got a Black Series Boba Fett. So the new Boba Fett, to give you an idea of what he looks like alongside another non-turtle in the Toon line on the NECA side. And then, of course, a more traditional 6-inch Black Series figure. And then let's move these guys away, and here is another Super 7 Ultimates from Thundercats this time. So here is everyone's favorite reptilian Slithe. And then we'll move Shredhead aside, and we will do a Mythic Legions for a 7-inch figure. So these guys are more in scale with each other, but of course Tibius here is about a head taller just because the Turtles in general will scale slightly shorter than their actual scale. So 7-inch scale, they're probably about 6 in that regard and when it comes to this line. And then we'll move this guy away, and how about a Marvel Legend? So here he is with Psycho Man. Another 6-inch, but it gives you an idea of what that looks like with another line. And then how about another 7-inch line? Here he is alongside Faker from the Motu Masterverse line, to give you an idea of what he looks like. And he is, of course, a little bit taller than Tibius is. He scales a little bit on the taller side just in general. Not much, but he's a slight bit taller. So there's an idea quickly of how big he is. He still has a little bit of size, but he's definitely smaller than a lot of the other stuff within the Ultimates line, just because of the fact that, of course, the Turtles do skew a little bit smaller because they're Turtles. Now, as far as accessories goes, keeping in line again with the vintage aspect of this line, so everything takes its reference from that vintage Playmates line. The Turtles always get a bunch of stuff because that vintage Playmates line, they really crammed those boxes full with all sorts of accessories. So the Turtles here, no exception, but of course they ramp it up even more so. So to start with, to differentiate this line from just being a Playmates, upscale, they do get their unique head sculpts. They're like Super 7ized. So this is Don's additional head sculpt, so it's not Playmates based, and it's a very stoic head sculpt. It's very different from the other three. So Raph and Leo are very much like in the thick of battle. Mikey looks like he's absolutely nuts, and then Donnie here is very much just sort of like no nonsense, very stoic, and maybe he's deep in thought or something. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of use that folks are going to be able to get out of this one. I really like this alt head sculpt. I'm not so sure which one I prefer because it's really hard for me to say that. I love that vintage head sculpt, so I just like both, but this is a really nice one. It's really cool because it's so different, because they did take a different approach to Donatello. They took a different approach to Mikey as well, but it's not nearly as overt as this. So I think it looks great. Sculpt is nice. Paint is really cleanly applied, but it's all about his expression, or in many cases, a lack thereof. But he's got that little bit of a furrowed brow, and then the closed mouth really does it for me. Now, beyond that, he does, of course, have some extra stuff. So we do get some extra hands as well. And we get 3 sets. So, of course, a set is 2. So you get the Style Pose hand. He has gripping hands on him in the box. Remember, vertical hinges. We get fists. And then we get more gripping hands, but these have lateral hinges on them. So you get both options when it comes to the gripping hands. And then thankfully we get fists. I wish that I had fists for all of my Turtles, and unfortunately, the colors don't match. So you can't really use them on different ones, but at least we've gotten some of them to get the fists. And I do believe that the reissues, at least for Raphael, I can't even remember if Leo had one or not, will have fists in them. You know, don't shoot the messenger if I'm wrong on that. Beyond that, of course, he has a lot of the same stuff that all the other turtles come with. So we do get some turtle comm accessories. So you get a closed one and you get an opened one. Makes really good sense for him in particular because, well, he does machines after all. We get a slice of pizza for him. Pepperoni pizza. We get whatever this is. And you know, I've followed turtles for almost my entire life, and I've never bothered to even really try to figure out what some of this stuff is. So he has one of these. He has one of these, you know, the pizza weapon, basically. And then you've also got this spiky guy. All of these are done up in nice silver metallic paint. This guy is a little on the flimsy side, but not too bad, really. Actually, it's not all that bad at all. And then you do get a set of 2 ninja stars, shurikens, which all very much plays into the vintage aspect of this line. And then, of course, he also gets his bow staff, which I am very happy with the overall deco and shape and thickness of this. It does seem to be a little on the short side, and I'm going to bring that vintage figure back in for comparison's sake. So they're almost the same size. So you can see here that they're almost the same size. So I feel like this maybe could have been a little bit longer, you know, maybe like, I don't know, like 1/4 of an inch longer, just to give it a little bit something more. But otherwise, the finish on it looks great. It very much has a wood grain texture and paint job to it, and then the wraps look really nice and dingy. And he does come with 2, because in that vintage figure, he came with 2. So there were 2 bow staff, and you do get 2 bow staff here as well. Now, of course, to round out the vintage aesthetic and idea behind this, you know, characters that did get the sprues in the weapons racks do get them here as well. So you get all of this stuff. So you get the 2 bow staff, you get the things, you get the ninja stars, and they're done up in just sort of a non-painted browny orange plastic, which is very vintage inspired. And I don't know if I've really touched on this a lot, but that's what this thing actually is. Like, it is a weapons rack. You know, what you were supposed to do is take all these off, and then you would peg your ninja stars up here. You would lay some of the stuff across here, because that's what these pegs are for. And it even has legs on the back. You know, whether it would stand up really well on the vintage line, you know, is maybe not necessarily a situation I can talk about right now because I don't remember, but it's actually meant to be a weapons rack, and Super 7 did keep that functionality. So whether or not you really care about that may or may not matter, but I do think it's kind of a cool little nod. So he does come with a ton of stuff, all the same kind of stuff that we've seen throughout the Turtles really so far, but then of course he does have his own unique accessories on top of that. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this one. I think folks who have waited for a Donatello through 4 waves of Super 7 Ultimates are going to be happy with this one. It's a really nicely done figure. Sculpt is great. You know, we've known that for a while. Paint on this guy is really clean. And then, of course, he does have a lot of uniqueness to him. He is a lot of parts reuse because that's what Turtles is. But he also has a unique color. He has unique parts. He has unique weapons that look really nice, albeit maybe a little on the short side. And he has a really great alternate head sculpt that absolutely changes the demeanor of the figure. It makes him apart from the others who look like they're very much in the thick of battle, while he could be apart doing something else, or being brooding, or just deep in thought, or stoic, however you want to do it. I think that alternate head sculpt changes this guy up in a very nice way. So very happy to finally have him, very happy to round out this team, and we can finally start getting into some of those crazy variants. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Donatello. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.